Hello and welcome. So today, no motorcycles, but what I have got is this custom built rat rod truck. So today I've got my brother here, it's his truck. He's going to give us the lowdown on how he built it, how much it cost, and give us a little tour around the vehicle. So this is Lawrence, my younger but not smaller brother. He is 22 and he's been building this rat rod for the past 2 years. So what exactly is this truck?
Right, so running gear chassis wise, it's a Range Rover Classic. That's what it's registered as because mechanically it is. It's got a 2.8 Daihatsu turbo diesel engine in it, which is, you know, a bit of an older diesel engine, but it's still pretty good. Then body wise, it is a 41 Chevy AK cab. I've chopped 5 inches out of the roof because originally I was going to go for like a low slung, a proper rat rod sort of thing.
Low and mean.
Yeah, low and mean and impractical, but
yeah.
I soon had a change of heart. The bonnet and the grille and the wings and side steps, they're all off various World War II military trucks and stuff, but they all fit together, they all use the same cab.
Right.
Which is, you know, pretty much the same as the civilian one, so it all works quite well, it all bolted together fairly well. I had to hunt around for them quite a bit and they were really beaten up, so there's a lot of, I mean, all these corners are new on there, and I think the panel on the side.
So this is all stuff you've welded in and then patinaed to match the rest of the bonnet?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd say patinaed, I just sort of left it out. But
the welder's patinaed it.
Yeah, but yeah, so to do it on the cheap, because I couldn't afford, you know, to buy an American truck at the time, I had to get all the cheap parts that no one else wanted really, that needed a lot of work. So yeah, these have all got, that's all new, same up that end, you can sort of see down the side, that's new, underneath that's new, side panels are new, the roof on the truck all welded in, you know.
So the very first thing you went and bought was the cab, and then did that dictate the rest of the project? Did you think, oh, I need to get a chassis that's going to fit this cab, or how did it go?
Well, so originally I was going to go like proper rat rod, just bought the cab, and I thought I'll just throw that on a chassis, have open engine, you know, do that, and basically I've always wanted a military vehicle and I've always wanted a rat rod, so I found out that the guy selling that I bought the cab off had some wings that would fit it that were military, so I thought, oh, that was good, and then I sort of found bits over time and put it together, and then sort of ended up going this route. Originally it was going to be, like I say, a low slung, I wanted jewellies on the back and whatever, but it soon became a bit impractical to do that.
Yeah, because this is actually quite a practical machine. I mean, you daily drive this, you use it as your work truck.
Yeah.
It's been through snow, mud,
water,
everything, and it handles itself well.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, so being the Land Rover, Range Rover chassis and axles and everything, it's fairly reliable, or as reliable as a Land Rover can be, sort of. And yeah, it's pretty comfortable to daily drive. It's got power steering, it's got seat belts, it's even got heated seats, although it doesn't have windows at the moment, but it's yeah, it's not terrible to drive by any means.
So what you're getting in making this is, one, you're cutting the price in half. An American truck would be 10 grand, you built this for
4, maybe 5 grand, yeah.
Right, so you've cut the price in half, you've got power steering, heating.
Yep. Yeah, like I say, the fuel economy is not great, but it's still better than like a 7-litre, you know, V8.
It's a fun vehicle, so you can't expect to have
everything.
Miles per gallon. That's
yeah, yeah, that's true. But yeah, like I say, it's pretty. I don't want to say bulletproof because
that'll jinx it.
Yeah, but it's
right. So starting at the bumper, this is quite a serious bit of kit. I mean, that's, how thick is that?
I think it's 10 mil thick or so. Yeah.
So you won't break that.
Shouldn't do, no.
Where did you get it?
I got that about 100 metres that way. It was part of an old barn that a friend of ours had torn down and was scrapping. And
right.
I said that would be the perfect bumper, so...
Nice and cheap.
I bought that.
If not free.
It was free, yeah. I can't remember if I traded it or did, you know, some kind of work for him or something like that. But yeah, I did originally buy a bumper for it that was a bit curvy, but I mean, it's just such a square truck.
Yeah, it's like, a very flat front, isn't it?
Yeah, it needs that sort of industrial look.
And you've got something solid to mount your winch to.
Yep, so that was the other reason. As it's sort of an off-roader, I don't do a whole lot of off-roading, but I do enjoy it, and you know, you've got to have a good winch or whatever, and I do actually have a crane that goes on the front of this for working with and stuff, but yeah, it's got a 6-ton winch on it, so it needs something substantial to...
So that could pull, is that pulling weight of 6 tons?
Yeah, so it could pull 6 tons, so brilliant. I think the truck weighs about 2 tons by itself, so it could pull 3 of these vertically up by itself.
Right, okay. And the hooks, where did you source those from?
So I got those off of Facebook, I think.
Yeah.
They are off of an original World War II one. It's one of those things you can get, not reproduction, but similar sort of things. But it was just one of those small details that I really wanted is the hooks on it. I think they sort of look like tusks on the front of it. They just make it look a bit more aggressive.
Mm-hmm. And so this bumper just mounts onto the stock mounts on the chassis?
Yep, yeah, it just bolts straight onto the original chassis. The original bumper is steel and it's still pretty thick, to be fair. And people always say, oh, that can't be street legal, but the thing is, if you get hit by it, you're having a crap day anyway, so...
yeah. So, how did you come by the chassis?
So, through building this, or getting parts, I made friends with a couple of like local hot rodders. And yeah, I had a friend who bought the Range Rover really cheap because he wanted the engine out of it to put in another Land Rover he had, and he just didn't have the time for it. And so I bought the whole thing for £500 with the engine.
V5?
Yeah, with the V5,
Right.
and it ran as well. It's sat for 10 years, plugged a battery in, and it fired straight away.
Brilliant, can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah.
Right, so looking in there, you've got your diesel Daihatsu.
Yep.
It almost looks factory. The way things are routed is very, very neat, so you've done a good job of that. Was that difficult to achieve?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, like you say, it fits in there quite well, but when you just start with the engine, it's quite hard to sort of work out where everything's going to go to make it look nicely. One of the things you sort of find, I'm sure you find this with your bikes, is everything wants to be in the same place a lot of the time. You put something there thinking, oh, it's going to be really good, but it turns out...
Doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I mean, there's so many things on this I've done 2 or 3 times to get it, and it's still not, really right, but it works.
And so, have you had to modify the firewall to get it in at all, or did it just plop straight in?
It did fit straight in, yeah. I was quite lucky with so originally they have a straight 6, so you see on the firewall it's got a little cutout and it actually fits in that. I have modified the firewall for the pedals and stuff like that.
Right.
Basically, because I had a donor vehicle, not just a chassis, I tried to use everything I possibly could. So pedal boxes out of that, steering column, there's a lot of Range Rover on this really.
So something I really like about this vehicle is the cab lights up on top and on the side as well. These actually function as indicators, is that right?
Yep, so they're my indicators and hazards, and they're just cab lights. They've got little LEDs in them.
Right.
And whatever, and yeah, it was all original when I bought the truck, and that's one of the reasons I went for the cab. Although in hindsight, it was the more rotten of all the...
But it had the good bits.
Yeah, it had the cool bits on it, so that sold it to me, really.
Yeah, and up here you've got this sort of mirror arrangement.
Yeah, so it did actually have one of the original mirrors in it, and these holes were original for it, and it had these crazy like batwing mirrors, because I think it had a big like wooden potato truck bed sort of thing on it,
right?
Like, proper hillbilly. And yeah, and I sort of wanted to copy that, so I used the original mounts and booger welded it like the original guy did.
Yeah.
The mirrors, at the moment, they're just cheap plastic sort of ones, and they get smashed every now and again, but
they do the trick.
They do the trick. You can see a lot out of them, actually.
So you lot won't know this, but Lawrence is actually a blacksmith. It's his workshop, and these aren't just bits of 8mm rod welded together. They've actually been crafted in a way that they've got some really nice decorative twists to them.
Yes, so originally, like I say, I was going to go for the low rat rods, and I was going to do like some cool forged hinges and all kinds of stuff like that. But looking at rat rods on the internet, I think there's a fine line between sort of tacky and cool. So in the end, I dulled it down. There's a few little bits on the truck like that where you've got like a nice little twisted bit of detail on something that otherwise would be pretty boring.
So obviously, when you did the roof top, the whole lot has had to come down. You're competing with a lot of different angles there, and you've also got to do the door. How easy was that to do?
It was horrible. I did it. I mean, I made about 3 different roof panels for it, and I still hate the one that's in it.
Right.
But luckily, it's so tall you can't see it. But yeah, it really wasn't easy. Like I say, the cab was pretty bent up when I bought it, and the doors, none of them closed properly. Whereas now, they actually close.
Beautiful.
Yeah, quite nicely. But yeah, there's so many angles. Like, it's not as easy as most rat rods are quite sort of square because they're like mod lays and stuff like that, and that's real easy to chop because it just comes straight down. Whereas as soon as you chop that, the distance of the roof has got to change. So that's got, I think, about 6 inches in it, although it's got 5 inches out of the pillars, as do the doors. So yeah, it was a bit tricky, and like you say, I'm a blacksmith, so I work with quite heavy metal.
Yep.
I'd never done any sheet welding metal before.
No, whole different game.
Yeah, I thought, oh, it'll be easy. It's really not. It's a whole different art on its own, really, and I still haven't mastered it, to be honest. But
we can give it a good go, and that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly.
So would you say getting parts for this running gear and chassis, a Range Rover thing, is easier than getting American parts because we don't have many in the UK.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot easier and a lot cheaper. You think how many Land Rovers are on the road in England, and I mean, there's a lot of parts for them. A lot of people modify them, aftermarket anyway. So there's a ton of cheap parts, second-hand and new, for them, and there's loads of different things you can do with them as well.
So effectively, you've thought of the future, and in terms of maintenance, keeping it on the road.
Yeah, well, that was it. If like I say, I want to daily drive it, and I do daily drive it. It needs to be reliable-ish, and if it does break, it needs to have cheap parts for it.
Right. So moving on to the back, would it be fair to say that yes, there was a lot of fabrication involved in the front, but it was mostly parts you'd picked up and modified, whereas the back is completely scratch built? Is that right?
Yeah, the back is all scratch built, and I mean, so basically there's a frame under all of it that the cab sits on, because I've got to use the original mounting spots, because that's the one thing in the UK, they don't like you modifying the actual chassis of it. So yeah, but the back was challenging in a different way, because you're not starting with anything, it's all from scratch really. You know, knowing where to start is sometimes a bit daunting and a bit difficult. But yeah, it's...
Okay. So starting at the exhaust, is that a straight through pipe? Have you got a back box in there? Are there baffles? What's going on there?
Don't be silly. Yeah, of course it's straight through. Yeah, originally it did have the Range Rover had 2 mufflers on it, and it sounded like a sewing machine. It was a bit rubbish, really.
Right. You want a bit of a beefier sound.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to run a cool diesel and a rat rod, it's got to sound a bit mean, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And so this pipe here that you've drilled out, where did you source that? Did you buy that in, or?
I had that left over from a job from some stalls I made for a company.
Right.
It was just a bit of pipe, and I spent, I think it was about 3 hours drilling the holes in it. But,
yeah.
But that's one of my favourite bits of the truck. I think that really adds to it. It sort of looks, like a machine gun barrel.
Yeah, I can see that. So this wheel arch and this sort of bed area here, that's all fabricated from sheet metal and checkerboard plate. Is it on a frame? What's the deal there?
No, so that's actually freestanding, but basically the chassis mount behind it has got 4 outriggers front and back. So the front outriggers go onto the side steps, and the rear ones have got a frame that supports everything.
Right.
There's various other mounting points throughout it, but yeah, I just had to sort of come up with a way of hiding that and making it look a bit nice. The checkerboard, I think I got that out of a skip.
Yeah, good man.
The panel, I just added some rivets in, just to make it look a bit more period or old, I suppose. And the same with the frame, that's all like riveted over the back. And
yeah, so the rivets is something you wanted to do because it was in keeping with the look?
I think it just makes it look a bit more industrial and aggressive. So like the bottom of the door they're all over pretty much anywhere that's bolted that you can see. Yeah, they're actually M8 bolts that I welded onto the head and then spun them down on my lathe to make them into a point, just to make them a little bit more aggressive, makes the door a little bit stronger.
Yeah, so that's one of the details I really like on this truck. Everywhere you look that there is an M8 bolt, it's got a point on the end, and you could have bought those chromed, but he didn't. He made them by building up the weld and turning them down into a point, and I think that's really cool. And the wood actually came from pallets.
Yeah. So when we order a sheet of steel in, it comes on these nice big pallets, and so I saved up for many months the bits of wood from them. And then you actually did the scorching on them all, didn't you?
Yeah. So I just ran across them with like a big blowtorch sort of thing, gas torch, and just burn them. And then we oil them as well, so they've got a little bit of protection from the water.
Yeah. It just brings the grain out, makes them look a bit older rather than a bit of pallet wood.
Yes, yeah. So one last thing I wanted to cover whilst we're on the back here is this little padlock you've got on there. So show us that.
Yeah. So in the back here, basically it actually mounts to the frame again, to the chassis again under there. But I thought I'd utilise that. So I've got a little toolbox on either side. On the other side, the fuel tank filler is just there, so it fits quite nicely. But yeah, it's just a little toolbox for. I don't know, I've got more towing straps in there, spare fan belts and all kinds of things to
get me out of trouble bits.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so moving on to the back, these Land Rover lights you got here?
Yeah, so they're just Defender lights, and at the moment just plastic guards on them.
Yep.
I think it was like 30 quid for all the lights with wiring. So again, really affordable and loads of parts for them.
And this bed is all painted with military, is it olive drab or something?
Yeah, it's like the original sort of green that it would have been painted in the war. Obviously it's not the original bed, but
yeah.
But yeah, it just adds to it. I did have it rusty, but it was just rusting way too quick on our gritty English roads.
Yeah, there was salt on that.
Yeah, especially driving it in the winter. So
And this is some sort of custom headache rack. What's the purpose of that?
yeah, so the headache rack serves a few purposes. One, it's sort of like a roll bar.
Right.
If I do roll, hopefully I don't get turned into a sardine. But second of all, it's really useful for mounting stuff on it. And third of all, it stops. I can, if I've got a long timber, obviously it's not a very long bed on it, so I can strap timber up against it, and stuff like that.
So it's quite a useful bit of kit, really.
Yeah, it's very useful. And again, I think it looks quite nice. So I've gone with the same sort of riveted motif, so it sort of looks old industrial.
So one thing I really like is your door card with the custom-made tool roll on there. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the door card originally had this like nice raised bit like that, and I thought that was just screaming for something. I was thinking originally just like a little door pocket or whatever, but I had the idea for having a tool roll in it, which I think's worked out really nice. And I had a friend who does leather work or whatever, and he's into his motorbikes, and so I actually traded that. He made that for me, and I made him a sissy bar.
Cool.
Or whatever, so that worked out really nice, and it's actually really useful not having to go and dig into the toolboxes if you just need a spanner.
Yeah. It's a lovely little detail.
Yeah, and it still works as a door pocket as well. I've still got maps and stuff in there.
Excellent. So moving up, I see you've got the GMC sort of VIN plate. Talk to us about that, because that's actually stamped with your truck's name.
Yeah. So I nicknamed the truck Brutus when I started it. My original inspiration for the truck was like the Vietnam gun trucks. I really like them, and there's a really famous one called Brutus, and I thought that was a perfect name.
So that's the little tour of this amazing vehicle. I really like all the custom details. I like to see things that have been made being resourceful. I like to see cheap things. I like to see trades. So this ticks all the boxes for me. Whilst it's not a motorbike, I think if you guys are into what I'm into, you're really going to appreciate this sort of thing. But that's enough talking for now. Let's get on to start it up, and we can hear what it sounds like. So there we have it, a custom built rat rod by a young bloke for under £5 grand. So I just want to say a massive thank you to Lawrence for talking about his vehicle, showing us his vehicle. Yes, it's not a motorbike, but it is custom. And if you enjoy this sort of thing, please leave a comment below, because I'm into bikes, Lawrence is into cars, and he's got some pretty interesting things going on, so let us know. So as always, a massive thank you for watching. Just hit over 100 subscribers. It means the world to me, so thank you for that. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you like it, and if you've got any questions, leave us a comment. I'll get Lawrence to get back to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.